In John chapter 12, verse 44 through 48, Jesus says words that many people like to believe. They like to say, or Jesus says, I didn't come into this world to judge this world, but to save it. That's John 12, 47. But he says in the very next verse, he says, there is a judge for the one who rejects me and does not accept my words. That very word which I spoke will condemn him at the last day. The reason why those words are so powerful to me is because of the fact that Jesus says that the words that he's spoken are what we're going to be judged by. Now, I may step on a few toes here today, but there are lots of competing cultures out there, competing cultures to the culture of the kingdom of God. Lots of them. Lots of them. There are worldly cultures, to be sure, and I think we would very easily identify those. But this is where I'm going to step on some toes maybe. I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but calling some things out as truth. There are even some Christian cultures or church cultures that really have nothing to do with the culture of the kingdom of God. It's only as if Jesus has become an appendage. It's the same mentality, the same arrogance, it's the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Oh, they had a church culture, and they were so confident in their own church culture that they had no need of Jesus whatsoever. No need. But Jesus talks about this in Matthew 25, where he says that there are going to be some people who have done a church culture or a Christian culture all their lives and didn't realize that they weren't even in the culture of the kingdom of God. And they're going to find themselves in that final day of judgment, and there are going to be some that are going to be shuffled off to the goat side and others on the sheep side. And the goats are going to say, but didn't we do this in your name? Didn't we feed? Didn't we do this? Didn't teach? We did all that stuff in your name. And Jesus says to them, depart from me, I never knew you. Let me kind of define it this way. I've said it before, but perhaps this will make some significant clarity available to you. I like to say this, and I do my best to live this, is that before I'm a 6-foot bald white guy who likes the 49ers and the Giants and lots of other things, I'm a Christ follower. Before I am Debbie Heden's husband, before I'm Nate and Matt's dad, I'm a Christ follower. What that means is that everything in my life takes second place to Jesus. Before I'm the senior pastor of Hilltop Community Church, I'm a Christ follower. That means that, as Jesus said, if you're going to follow me, you're going to take up your cross to follow me. You're going to take up the instrument of death and dying so that you can have life forevermore. But I propose to you today, there are lots of people who think they're in the kingdom of God, the culture of the kingdom of God, but they have just put a nice thin veneer on it. And there's selfish ambition, there's vain conceit, there's pride, there's arrogance, there's backbiting, there's meanness. But we're Christians. And that's why we're spending this time going right back to what Jesus taught so that we can get this thing right. My prayer is that this church will be everything that the early church was. That they loved one another deeply from their hearts, that the people on the outside marveled at them because how much they loved each other. Not the love that love if or love because, I love you if you do something for me, I love you because you do something for me, but the love that Christ had for the church, that same kind of love, that we'd have that same kind of love for each other, that we would defend each other and love each other and bless each other and pick each other up. And yes, in times when it needed, even rebuke one another, not for the purposes of self-aggrandizement, but for the purposes that we would become more like Christ together. That we would do what Jesus did, and we would put a towel over our arms, and we would serve one another out of gladness of heart, not because somebody said we should, and not only while people are looking. Lord, save us from that kind of stuff.